My name's Abby, I'm a registered dietitian here to talk about interesting nutrition stuff. It is absolutely possible to have a nutritionally complete diet and thrive as a vegan, but you do have to be a little more thoughtful about it. In this video, I'm going to talk through how much protein you need, the key vegan protein sources to include, and how to structure your diet in a way that makes getting what you need easy. So the protein recommendation for healthy adults is set at 0.8 grams per kilogram per day. This is intentionally set to be higher than what most people need to avoid a deficiency, but it is true that some people need more than that. During calorie restriction and fat loss, 1.2 to 1.6 grams per kilogram per day is more likely to be optimal for muscle retention, and the range for older adults is higher, more like 1.2 to 2 grams per kilograms per day. It is pretty easy for most people to get the right amount of protein they need from diet alone without the use of protein shakes and supplements. But if you really wanted to reach those higher intakes, then they might be useful, especially if you had a very low appetite. But just consider whether you actually need them, because if you are able to have a balanced diet of 3 meals a day and snacks, then additional shakes and things may just be adding unnecessary calories. So, what are the key vegan protein sources? So let's start with legumes, which are beans, chickpeas and lentils. Cooked lentils and chickpeas contain about 9 grams of protein per 100 grams. Beans are a bit higher. Soybeans or edamame contain about 11 grams of protein per 100 grams, and black beans and kidney beans are similar, not as much but close behind. And one small portion of cooked legumes is around 5 to 6 tablespoons, equal to about 90 grams. Next, you've got nuts and seeds. Nuts and seeds are super high in nutrients, but realistically they're less likely to be a main protein source, but more of a really useful addition. 1 tablespoon of chia or hemp seeds contains about 3 to 5 grams of protein, and a small handful of nuts would contain between 4 and 8 grams of protein. So, sprinkled into meals or blended into soups, smoothies or sauces, or even just had as a separate snack like a handful of unsalted nuts or a chia pudding or something like that, can be really useful to have in between meals to top up your protein intake, and it can significantly increase your protein intake throughout the whole day. Of course, it's important with nuts and seeds to keep portion sizes in mind because they are high in fat, but those are healthy fats. Another vegan protein source is soy and soy-based foods. These are particularly useful on GLP-1 or with a low appetite because it's a lot of protein packed into a small volume. So tofu contains up to 15 grams of protein per 100 grams, tempeh contains up to 20 grams of protein per 100 grams, and soy milk is good as well with around 4 grams of protein per 100 ml, which is similar to milk. Soy is also a complete protein, meaning it contains all the essential acids that you need in good enough amounts, and it's particularly rich in leucine, which is really good for muscle retention. Thinking of the essential amino acids is important. With other kinds of plant proteins, you do need to combine different proteins across the day to make sure you've got enough of all the essential amino acids for your diet to be nutritionally complete. Whereas with soy, it's already nutritionally complete, so you don't have to worry about that so much. Most of the soy products, including tofu, are also usually fortified with B12, vitamin D and calcium, making them really important for other nutritional reasons as well, not just protein, like nerve health, brain health and bone health. Tofu is also incredibly versatile. Even if you don't like that squishy texture, you can actually just use silken tofu to blend into soups, smoothies, desserts even, or sauces. It's quite bland in taste and it's not grainy at all, so all it does is add a slight creamy texture, and it's a great base for other flavours. That's actually the same with a lot of beans. For example, blending butter beans into soup makes it really creamy as well. In fact, you can probably get a lot more protein this way by blending proteins into other foods. So that's a breakdown of most of the key protein foods to use on a vegan diet, and depending on your needs, you could use different strategies. If you're using legumes as your protein source, you could pair that with lots of other vegetables and with whole grains, which do also add a little bit of protein, and that way you can aim for around 18 to 20 grams of protein per meal or something like that. Or you could base meals on soy products where it would be easier to get a high protein meal. Or you could double up on protein sources. For example, make a tofu and black bean stew, which can easily exceed the amount of protein that you'd find in an average meat-based meal. I know what some people are going to say next, which is that plant proteins aren't as easily digestible as animal proteins, so does it really matter how much you're going to eat if you're not even going to absorb all of it? That is a fair question. Plant proteins are less digestible. Fibre can actually literally trap the protein a little bit so it's less accessible, and compounds like phytates and tannins can reduce absorption. However, in reality, the difference in digestibility is actually really small. Plant protein has a 5 to 15% reduced digestibility compared to animal protein, which isn't enough really to make a difference to body composition. As long as you're getting enough protein overall and enough variety, then that shouldn't actually make a significant difference at all. In fact, it's not a bad trade-off at all, especially when you consider that plant foods and plant proteins like legumes are some of the richest sources of fibre that you can eat and contain lots of phytochemicals that reduce inflammation in the body, tons of micronutrients like folate, and all sorts of other good stuff. High protein plant foods like beans nourish the microbiome, reduce cholesterol, improve glycemic control, and improve satiety. Legumes are also a source of resistant starch, which is excellent for colon health and reducing inflammation. In fact, including these types of nutrients and compounds in your diet is one of the most effective methods of reducing your risk of heart disease and colon cancer, which are actually two of the ways that you are most likely to die. So another effective way of getting all the protein that you need from your diet in a day is to combine proteins with whole grains, which I mentioned earlier. So whole grain carbohydrates like oats, barley, rice, whole grain bread, quinoa, they are sources of carbohydrates, but they also do contain protein as well. These contain a lot of the amino acid methionine, so when combined with plant proteins like legumes, they can easily complete the amino acid profile of your diet. For example, combining beans with brown rice, or combining hummus with whole grain bread, or for example combining oats with nuts and seeds. In order to complete your amino acid profile in one day, you don't even have to combine these in the same meal, you just have to have them all in one day. So hopefully that means that you will be able to get enough protein and all of the essential amino acids without necessarily having to overthink it. There are also a lot of meat alternative products out there these days, but the protein content does vary quite a lot between them, so the best advice really is just to check the labels on them. Some of them are more likely to be a higher quality protein, like for example the soy-based products or the mycoprotein products, but one thing to always watch out for is the salt content, which is usually quite high in those products, and it's probably best to have them as convenience options now and again, rather than having those as your staple protein on a vegan diet. Plant milks and other plant milk-based products like plant yogurts and things like that are another great way to boost the protein content of your diet on a vegan diet. Soy milk is probably the best for protein, as I said, like 4 grams per 100 mils usually, and often it's fortified as well with calcium, B12 and vitamin D, which is also important. Hemp milk is another good one that often contains around 2 to 3 grams of protein per 100 mils. But the others are usually very low in protein, like even almond milk or rice milk, things like that generally don't contain much protein at all. So if you are trying to hit targets for protein, especially on GLP-1 where your appetite might be reduced, you're probably best off going for the soy-based products. So, key strategies to take away. Number 1, eat regularly and think of meals and snacks as opportunities to get more nourishment. Sometimes having a regular meal pattern of 3 meals a day and snacks as well is the best way of getting enough of what you actually need. Number 2, if your appetite is low, then it's important to aim for a little and often approach, eating every few hours, having light meals or nourishing snacks that are high in protein. Number Number 3, if you can, use soy-based products as your main protein source, especially opt in for the fortified products for the calcium, vitamin D and B12, which is essential for bone health. Number 4, include a variety of different types of legumes like beans, different kinds, nuts and seeds, and lentils and chickpeas. Number 5, choose whole grain carbohydrate products over white products and aim for variety here as well. And 6, make sure that you are including a source of protein in every meal and also topping it up with snacks between meals too. If you use those tips, then you probably won't have to worry about counting out every gram of protein in your diet to make sure you're getting enough. You should be able to get all the protein you need from putting those strategies in place. Where issues might arise for vegans is if there's allergies and intolerances. So if that's the case, just message me on Instagram, because I'm more than happy to talk through that or make some more videos about that as well. And of course, protein is not the only nutrient to be more aware of in a vegan diet, so if you want to learn more about this topic, then please subscribe to this channel.